Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
If we took some time and wandered down your wild lines. Hey highway, you know I can't stay, and the leaving ain't as hard as staying gone. Hey highway, hey horizon, I'm keeping my eyes on
Artlist.io.
you and what you promised that you're holding. But this road widens as the sky brightens, and the sun is wiping pain from my face. Hey highway,
Music licensing reimagined.
still water runs deep, and love is too damn cheap in that town to turn back around. My vices and my demons, what you took and what I'm hoping you have found, are gone from me now. So goodbye to
Artlist.io.
Hey highway, hey heartache, you made a mistake. You can't break a heart that was already broken. So go and move on.
Music
Another
licensing
sad
reimagined.
song. In some smoky bar with old guitars, you ain't welcome in this car. Still water runs deep, and love is too damn cheap in that town to turn back around. My vices and my demons, what you took and what I'm hoping you have found, are gone from me now.
Artlist.io.
So goodbye today. Hey highway, hey highway.
Music licensing reimagined.
Hey highway, what do you say if we took some time and wandered down those wild lines?
Good evening. How are you doing? It's January 2026. This is Hannah Klein's time. Before starting her podcast, I'd like to ask you to become a subscriber to Hannah's Substack on https://hannahkleinstories.substack.com. Hannah has a lot of plans for her Substack. If you become a paid subscriber, you'll not be contributing to her extensive work on her podcast, Hannah Klein's Time, but also will have access to exclusive articles. At the same time, please support Hannah's work. A kind donation is appreciated. You can donate from https://officialhannahklein.com/donate/
Good evening and Happy New Year. I think it's kind of late already, and so I have to say that I hope you had a nice New Year's Eve, and then I hope you spent a nice New Year for the first 3 days. I think that we call it New Year's in Japan. And so, well, I have to, well, it's already not exactly like the first 3 days of New Year's that the Japanese people call New Year's, but New Year's is a special occasion for the Japanese. Um, but anyway, before the start of the 2016, I discussed the recognition of the Somaliland, which was quite interesting to me, but well, it sounded very interesting. So I asked Dr. Ofir Haivry, my regular guest, to explain what the recognition means. And it was quite interesting. But I think that ultimately, this recognition is going to be very important for the democratic nations. And I have to say that, every time I listen to the news, like there has been some kind of negative reactions from nations. And then I listen to China and Russia. And then now, like, I'm kind of like, enough of that. So, I hope that, well, there is realistically going to be, I have to say, a positive reaction, influence once the Somaliland is recognized. And look at the United Nations. Is the Islamic Republic of Iran influencing something nice for their own people? They have been torturing and murdering people, their own people. Okay, if you listen to what has happening in Somalia, well, you will probably understand what the recognition of the Somaliland means. And also, I think that it is important for people to understand why Israel is connected to Bondi Beach attack. A lot of people may think that the Jews and Israel are different, and the Jews are killed because of Israel. That's not the logic, and that's not the case. And it is a race issue, and also the Jewish people are particularly targeted like that. I mean, it was not an indiscriminate attack that happened in Bondi Beach. So I hope that people think about these two topics mainly, and there are other topics that we discussed. So please listen. Good morning, good afternoon, good. I think it's
Yeah,
like
I
12
think it's,
in the evening,
yeah,
so
exactly.
it should be the
Afternoon for me, evening for you. Yes.
afternoon. Yeah. Like it's now 7 hours difference. It's kind of difficult, like, because it's shifting from 6 to 7 hours because there's no daylight
Yes.
saving time in Japan.
Well, we're lucky I'm not living in the US because then we have 12 hours or even more. So this
Um,
is not terrible. We can manage.
okay. Okay, so how are you?
Doing okay these
I
days.
see.
It's a good time for Israel for in
Uh,
many ways. So and also personally. So yes, doing very well. Thank you.
I see. Yeah, how is, by the way, your Hanukkah?
Well, our Hanukkah finished a few days ago. It's like 8 days long,
Mhm.
and it was very nice. And this year, it closely coincided with Christmas. It's not always the case because the Jewish year
Mhm.
is a lunar year,
Yeah.
and the Christian or the Western
Mhm.
calendar is solar. So in the Jewish holidays shift a bit.
Mhm.
Although we are lunar calendar, we have every 4 years an added month in order to catch up. Otherwise, it would be totally unconnected with the seasons. But since most of the Jewish holidays are connected to the seasons,
Mhm.
so you cannot have Passover come in the winter or something like that. So there
Oh.
is like every 4 year a
Mhm.
corrective month. So sometimes Christmas is exactly during Hanukkah, sometimes very close to it. So this year it was quite close, and so we got a lot of Hanukkah greetings from our Christian friends, and then we gave them back their Christmas greetings. So that's it.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Yeah, my friend sent me a photo. He had a first granddaughter, and yeah, that was like he became a grandfather this year. So
On the 24th of December.
no, not
Ah,
exactly, but
well,
before,
I thought that the
you
baby
know,
was born like Jesus,
baby
so
is
maybe
spending the first
okay,
Hanukkah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so um there are actually I'm sorry that I had to cancel, like, the Thursday one, because I was feeling so terrible, like, when it comes, well, during the Hanukkah celebration, there was Bondi Beach massacre. And it was not just shock. Well, I was shocked because some people whom I see on social media were injured, you know, and
Yes, yes, of course.
I, you know, l- it, I mean, I lost my words. I don't have words because, Australia is close to Japan. It's 2 hours away from Japan. And Australia is one of the most popular places for the Japanese to live to. So I just,
And yes, and Australia also always seems like a very peaceful place, away from all other conflicts. So you
yeah.
don't think that it's not a place where you expect such a thing to happen, because it's
Mhm.
like Australia hasn't really any uh, problems with its neighbors or any deep involvement in geopolitical issues close
Mm.
to it. So this is very clearly, it's very alien to it, this attack. But unfortunately, I think it has been in a way not invited, but by way of omission, the door was left open for it by the current government. Because my own belief is that in all crimes, there is always terrorism too. It arises by degree. So the organization and even the frame of mind to commit a large terrorist attack is not born one day. It's gradually, growing. And if there is a very, very harsh environment against terrorism, then it can't grow. But if you know the general feeling is more lax, then people become bolder, they say more violent things, and nothing happens, and then so it's like there is this theory of law and order called after a famous essay called Broken Windows. That the theory is that if there's a neighborhood where little infractions like a broken window or
Mm.
something like that is not taken care of, then the criminals will become bolder and bolder and commit worse crimes until theft, attack, and murder. So the theory is that if you're lax to little infractions, then you actually are encouraging, in a way, the harsher things. So I think that in Australia, the lax policies towards all kinds of groups calling for, let's internalize the intifada and attacking Israel in very violent words, and then moving that anti-Israeli stance also to Jews in general.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's a slippery slope where eventually it got to the place where the terrorists attacked. And those terrorists are actually people who are Australians. I mean, they're citizens, they're living there a long time. It's a father and son. The son was born in Australia. So it's not like a group of terrorists that come from abroad and attack someone 2 weeks after. These people in Australia became gradually radicalized. They got no message from the Australian police and the public sphere that certain language, certain attitude are inexcusable, and then they go to the place where they believed it's a good thing, or it's I would say acceptable to commit such crimes. So that's my attitude, that the more society says even verbal attacks are unacceptable, those are societies where terrorism has very little place to grow.
Do you think that, I have seen so many protests, like from the river to the sea, globalized intifada, and then after the actual Bondi beach attack, there were a group of people who were calling for gas the Jews. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on. And
yeah, exactly. And I think that you're right, that the demonstration, of course, it's a right to demonstrate freely in a free society. The question is, what is the content of the demonstration? If you argue that Israeli policies are bad, you're absolutely free to do that. But if you make claims that are totally false about genocide, about children being starved, about Israel being an illegitimate place, about fighting Israel by any means, killing Israeli civilians is justified, then you prepare the ground for saying killing Israelis is okay, and then the distance between killing Israel and killing Jews is closed down, and then you get the attack on Bondi Beach. So I believe that such demonstrations should be monitored. There should be pressure on the organizers themselves to monitor what is going on. Of course, if one person is shouting something, then the police can do something about it and say, okay, this person is saying kill the Jews, then he can be arrested. This is unacceptable. But when the whole demonstration, thousands of people are chanting slogans that are anti-Semitic, that are violent, that are calling for violence, then it's first of all the responsibility of the organizers to decide which kind of banners, which kind of people come, and then it's also the responsibility of the society, meaning the political societies and the police and so on, to monitor. Because again, as I said, a terrorist is usually not someone who comes one morning, he gets up in the morning and say, I have to kill Jews. He gets to that by degrees when he feels it's normalized in his surrounding, the people he meets. He goes week after week to a demonstration where people say, they start with kill Netanyahu, they go on kill Israelis, they go on with kill the Jews, and then week after week, and then he becomes convinced that, yeah, it's fine to kill some Jews on the beach, even children, even civilians. So that person did not wake, one morning, took a knife and went out. Those things happen, but in this case and many others, it's premeditated, it's organized. Those people went and were trained in shooting, and they planned it all. So it wasn't some crazy person, individual doing something crazy. It was an organized terrorist attack, and that is that organization is the result of the laxity of the police, of the Australian political system, and even of the organizers of, for all their anti-Israel position. They themselves should know that there are some kind of language that is inexcusable and should be not used in a demonstration.
I think so. Occupation, they often use Israeli occupation. The Islamic Republic of Iran really likes to use occupation, the Zionist regime. I don't
Yeah,
know
but
why. Yeah.
occupation is moving from saying Israel is occupying the territories to calling
Yeah,
Israel itself
exactly.
occupation, meaning all of Israel is illegitimate, not the question of the borders. It's not a border question or territories. It's actually saying the state of Israel is illegitimate. If the state itself is illegitimate, then
Yeah.
any Israeli is illegitimate. And that's a slope that gets you to killing Israelis. And even then, you have to make a leap, because again, the attack in Australia wasn't against the Israeli embassy or Israeli officials. It was
Yes.
against Jews. So at that point, it's like someone saying Japan is bad, Japan is illegitimate, and then attacking Japanese citizens in Brazil that have nothing to do with the Japanese government. Those people on Bondi Beach, they aren't Israelis for the most part. They're civilians. Who knows what their opinion? Some of them their opinions might be against the policies of the Israeli government, right? And in some cases, they are little children, right? One child of, I think, 9 or 8 years old was killed.
Yes.
What kind of responsibility has she? Let's say that you are against the policies of Israeli regime or the Israeli government. What is the responsibility of a kid of 8 years old that is Jewish in Australia for this? Nothing. Clearly, it's a deranged way of extending, culpability to everyone that is born of hate, but is unfortunately assisted. I'm sure that the goal of the Australian government is not to, to advance terrorist attacks, but it has to bear the responsibility for making it easier, both by lax policing and by accepting a certain kind of language and public feeling, let's say.
It seems like, when we allow such demonstrations over and over, it sounds like we're saying it's okay. And, it seemed like a real nightmare, really, and it scares me, if that ever happens in Japan too, or, I mean, Australia has a very strict gun law, and Japan doesn't allow gun at all. But illegally, it's possible
But
to
those guns that they used were legal guns.
Yeah.
Those people got guns because they got a hunting license and they had guns. These guns were not illegal. They were legal guns.
Yeah.
So the point is not that someone is buying guns on the black market. They were perfectly legal armaments. I'm assuming that is also possible in Japan. The point is not that 99% of people who have guns don't use them in that way. As I can see, you have today pro-Hamas and pro-terrorist groups basically trying to have these kinds of demonstration all over the world, including Japan. But as far as I can see from the social media, there are demonstrations also in Japan, but they are very small. And you can see that when they happen in Tokyo, most of the people in them are actually not Japanese at all.
Yeah,
They're foreigners. So I'm not saying zero Japanese, but you see that there's like 500 people and 300 are not Japanese. And of course, there are some Japanese, but the size is very small. So this is encouraging that, of course, I'm assuming many Japanese disagree with Israeli policies, but they do not bring that disagreement to think that they have to take part in demonstrations that are pro-terrorism, pro-Hamas, and anti-Semitic. So that is for me a good sign. At least currently in Japan, that is not happening. Also because in Japan there isn't such a large Muslim community that unfortunately many times, I'm not saying all Muslims, certainly not all Muslims, but part of the Muslim population is radicalized, in the mosques and by the
like in
media and so
Europe.
on. Yeah, and then from that radicalized group, there emerges those that are bringing one more step forward, and they actually become terrorists. So it seems that the ecosystem for that in Japan is not there yet, or hopefully it will never be there. But that is the situation.
Yeah, it's really scary, but the police chief of Australia said, this is not because of the religion that they committed the crime. This is unacceptable, to me. And it's because of the religion. It's
Well,
not
let's say this.
indiscriminate.
Let's say this. I know that in Africa
Mm-hmm.
and in Asia, there are millions of people who are suffering, at least as big as they are suffering at least as much as Muslims are all over the world. But for some reason, I don't see some kind of Buddhist terrorists going around killing people in America and in Australia. I don't see African Christian terrorists killing Europeans or Muslims. That's not the case. So you have to ask yourself, why is it there are many millions of people suffering around the world? Even now as we speak, in Africa and in Asia, there are people suffering. Why aren't these people, becoming terrorists? Why are no Asian countries, no African countries saying, yes, there is oppression in this place and there should be Christian or Buddhist or whatever, or Hindu terrorists? You don't have that. Why is the case that you have so much Islamic terrorism in India and no Hindu terrorism in other countries, in Bangladesh or whatever? So you have to get to the conclusion that it is connected to Islam. Not saying that any Muslim, maybe even not most Muslims, are in favor of terrorism, but there is something in the religion of Islam and in at least certain branches of it, the way they view the terrorists they view them not only as political agents, but in a way as saints. So they are, the jihad, and they claim that these terrorists are actually going to heaven. So if I would hear all the religious authorities in Islam saying these terrorists are criminals against Islam, killing civilians, even Israeli civilians, Hindu civilians, is a sin. If I hear that, then I say, okay, clearly the major authorities in Islam have rejected this. But unfortunately, many religious authorities are in favor of these attacks. Some are using very ambiguous language. There are some even, Muslim countries and religious authorities, certainly in Iran, but not only in Iran, in Pakistan, in Qatar, in other places, who justify explicitly and on the television, on the radio, in the social media, all the time. I'm not talking about 4 people. Hundreds of religious authorities. In Iran, it's the supreme leader who's like the Pope, if you want, of the Shiites. But in many other countries, you have very senior figures who are encouraging these terrorist attacks. So you have to say there's nothing like it in Christianity, nothing like it in Judaism, nothing like it in the religions in Asia. So what's going on here? And I think that Muslims who believe that terrorism is bad should take responsibility of shutting down the voices within their communities that are either for terrorism or even are they're like in many cases it's not in favor of terrorism, but they're just they're not coming against it. They're not coming out against it. They're just silent, and this is a way of creating areas where mosques, where people come to the mosque, hundreds, thousands of people, and hear preachers Friday after Friday saying, go and kill Jews, go and kill Jews. And eventually some of them do. That is a fact. These are not, opinions. These are facts.
I think so. I believe so. And do you clearly say that, anti-Semitism and, this terror attack is directly linked? Because I do think so. Because, there are some people who say, and like Zionists and the Jews are different. But, at the very bottom line, I don't think so. You know, I know that they're
Well,
different.
look, in theory,
Mm,
you can be, and surely there are some people who are anti-Zionist and are not anti-Semites. Clearly, for example, there were and there are Jews who are anti-Zionist. A lot of people who were Jewish communists rejected Zionism, and they had other opinion. And
mm,
that is not to mean that anyone that rejects Zionism is an anti-Semite. However, it is the case, certainly, that in many cases, the term Zionist is used loosely to mask what is clearly anti-Semitism. So, for example, you see that in many cases, attacks on Jewish groups or institutions, let's say
mhm,
synagogues, are described as attack against Zionists, although the synagogue is not in Israel, it's in New York. And of course, it might be that some people, maybe the majority of people who go to the synagogue are themselves Zionists, but the synagogue is a place for all Jews, some of whom probably are not Zionists,
mm,
right? So in this sense, many of these attacks are clearly directed at Jews with the, behind the mask of anti-Zionism. In the same way, I believe that, for example, we see currently, I'll give you one example. It's like now in China, you
mhm,
have a lot of, sadly, on the Chinese social media, people claiming all kinds of claims about Japan
yeah.
and its current intentions, or taking something from 1937 and saying the Japanese and so on. Now, clearly, this has nothing to do with today. Let's say that you think that the policy of the Japanese government is totally wrong. So say the policy is totally wrong. If you go and rake up something from 1937 and you use that to justify your anti-Japanese stance, it means that it has nothing to do with the Japanese government. The Japanese government would do whatever. You are simply anti-Japanese. That's the truth of it. So in the same way, I think anti-Zionism is just used as a mask to mask anti-Jewish sentiment, because Zionism is simply the idea that the Jewish nation, like all nations, has a right to its own state.
Yeah.
Zionism has nothing to do with specific territories or specific what are the let's say the boundaries of Israel or things or policies. It's just an idea. So saying I'm anti-Zionist actually means the Jews have no right to a state. Israel is illegitimate, and the Jewish claim to be a nation even is illegitimate. So you can see how easily that can slip into clearly anti-Semitic ground.
Yeah, I did not exactly realize how much, there are people who want to illegitimize and also call like Israel, they use the term occupation of Gaza or, the Palestinian Authority, but it's actually not. They're talking about Israel. And, they
Yes.
call like, from the river to the sea because they want to exterminate, and it's really strange, that they do this. And, it's always about Israel to me. Like,
Yes, I agree. And the point is that most people around the world, not only in Japan, but even in America, in Europe, most people around the world aren't really informed about the details of the conflict in the Middle East, right? They know that Israel is fighting against the Arabs and the Palestinians have these claims. They don't know exactly. So it's very easy to fool people and use the term occupation to begin with regarding
Yeah,
Judea,
occupation
Samaria, and
sounds
Gaza.
like, like having, some territory, just throw some
Exactly,
kind of,
like it's a territorial question.
yeah.
So that in theory, if Israel gives up territory, then the problem is solved. But then the term occupation becomes Israel itself. So it doesn't matter how much territory Israel would give, it won't change anything. So it's not about territory anymore. In fact, most people don't know that between 1948 and 1967, Israel wasn't in control of the territories, Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, right? So there was no occupation of these territories. But no one thinks about the fact that at that time, the Arabs did not demand a Palestinian state in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. They never demanded that. They demanded a Palestinian state in the place of Israel. So the Palestine Liberation Organization was founded in 1964. 1964, Israel wasn't occupying anything, right? Gaza and Judea, Gaza was controlled by Egypt. Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem were controlled by Jordan. So this is 1964. So why do you need a Palestine Liberation Organization? The PLO didn't demand the liberation of Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, or East Jerusalem, because they were in Arab hands. It demanded the destruction of Israel.
Yeah.
So this is the best proof that the question is not territorial. It's not about policies of Israel. It's not territorial. It's nothing to do with that. It's not about Gaza. It's nonsense to argue that when the Arab argument is always about Israel itself. So my best advice to everyone, certainly in Japan, which is even more removed than other areas from the Middle East, is please inform yourself of the basics before you form an opinion. Meaning,
That's very true.
you might see in the television something happening in Gaza. You might hear something. Before saying, yeah, that is bad or good, I'm not saying you have to agree with me, but I'm saying your responsibility is to inform yourself more about this whole conflict, the basis, and so on. And then you can say, I'm in favor of this, I'm against that, this is wrong, this is right. But at this point, there is, I believe, a deliberate attempt by the pro-terrorist camp, which is most Arab nations and also other countries who support them, like China and Russia and Iran. All those countries are not Arab, but they are supportive of this view that somehow Israel is always to blame. And my belief is because they see Israel as upholding a vision of democracy, of the West, of certain values that they see. I mean, after all, the whole story about Israel is such a small state and such a small territory. Why is it so, taking up so much of the news, right? Someone sitting in Japan in his home is hearing news about Israel about the same amount as he hears about China or Africa or Brazil. Now, when people hear that all the population in Israel is 10 million, so when I say to someone, from Japan or from Ethiopia or from Brazil, he asked me, how many people live in Israel? I say 10 million. So they said, not in the capital, all of Israel. I say, yeah, all of Israel is just 10 million. They laugh. They say, what? from the news, you would think that 200 million people all the day, Israel, this. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
So it's very disproportionate because
very
Israel
strange,
serves
yeah.
as a
It's really
Israel
strange
is a
that
symbol.
Mhm.
Is a symbol for certain values
Mm.
that a whole set of countries, basically dictatorships
Mhm.
like the Arab states, like Iran, like Pakistan, like China, like Russia,
Mhm.
are seeing Israel as a kind of symbol for everything that they don't want.
Yeah, it's like so I really started to understand, what these people believe in Japan. I know that the journalist organization is not in really favor of Israel for some reason. That was something that I had in mind for decades. But, after October 7th, I started to realize, what it was about. They read out Al Jazeera, which is Qatari media, and they actually put out some of the propaganda photos on which was exposed by the German media that, it was, taken by, intentionally. Those kinds of photos are used on to inform people in Japan in some cases in case of Israel. And I don't think it's fair. And I think that people really need to know what's going on. And I think they really need to know what they are informed. But, the better point right now, the same as the presidential election of LDP in Japan, no organization, I have to say, major organization forecasted prime minister would win. But, there were so much support on social media, YouTube, such minor, informative, it has become informative like YouTube channels, you know, it really has become or informative, it has become more informative than before. And now, like a lot of academists are discussing problems, they don't appear on TV, but they're free to discuss various issues online. And it's very interesting to listen to. So, like, now there are more people who depend on, who I think who are independent from the mainstream journalism of Japan for some reason. So I think it's a good trend for, good trend so that, people have more opportunities to actually understand, you know. But, we have to be really careful at the same time at the propaganda, that's spread around. Like
Yeah.
pro-Hamas groups really like to use social media.
I agree. I would say more than this. Some of it is orchestrated by Qatar and so on.
Yeah.
Some of it is not orchestrated, but I don't know if you call it grassroots, but there are groups of very radical activists who
Mm.
are propagating that. Not they're not organized centrally. Simply, they are part of this anti-Israel agenda. And then there are, I would say, countries that
Mm.
are in general in favor of this outlook. China is an example. So
Mm.
you have so much anti-Israel material
Mm.
in the Chinese social media world
Mm.
that is not orchestrated by Qatar. That is something that the Chinese Communist government
Mm.
wants to have there, because they monitor something that they don't want, it disappear immediately. And
Mm.
certainly, the Chinese government is not influenced by Qatar. That is something that they believe that they want to advance those, crazy opinions about Israel
Mm.
and pro-terrorist stance. So, while of course someone saying on Chinese media things like China is oppressing the Uyghurs or the Tibetans, immediately it will be shot. But at the same time, the government is, encouraging basically people to express very violent opinions against countries like Japan and South Korea and the US, and of course Israel, which you would say, what does China even care about Israel? There's no, you can say that in the area of the South China Sea or the Yellow Sea, so there is some conflict with Japan and Taiwan and the US, but why does China even have to care about Israel? It's on the other side of Asia, literally, right?
Yeah.
But it is connected because China is courting very much the Muslim states and Arab states, and it is, I would say, in the kind of a coalition of haters with Iran and with Russia and with many Arab countries, and the whole attitude is basically anti-America. So anti-America, against American allies like Japan and so on, but also because Israel is seen as some kind of important American ally in the Middle East, then you have all these anti-Israel activity in the Chinese media too. Well, again, you would say, why should China even care about what goes on in Israel and Palestine and those areas, right? I mean, it's like there is now a civil war in the Central African Republic.
Yeah.
Do you see anyone talking about it? No one cares about it. What's going on in the Congo? You never see anything about that in Chinese news or Chinese social media. So why should they care about Israel? Well, because it's all part of the same kind of axis of hatred.
Yeah. And I just saw that Prime Minister signed the recognition of the Somaliland.
The Israeli Prime Minister.
Yes.
I thought maybe the Japanese also recognize, but we'll have to wait a bit for that. Okay. Yes. So indeed, it was a very important day. In Israel, there is a wide agreement about that. It's not, the government, but also the opposition in Israel is very unified in favor of that. And there has been a lot of support and thankfulness in Somaliland for Israel, for the Prime Minister, for the Foreign Minister about that initiative. And I think it's important, and hopefully it will, in a sense, open the dam and more countries will join and recognize Somaliland.
You know what? I don't think the audience understand the difference between Somalia and Somaliland.
Yeah, clearly. So yeah, sure. We don't have a map exactly, but I will try to describe without it. Basically, the country of Somalia was created when two different colonies were united. After the Second World War, there was an area which was called Italian Somaliland and another area called English Somaliland. And those two areas were merged together into Somalia, which then eventually became an independent state. Now, I would say that in ethnic and religious terms, they are the same people. However, their different colonial experience meant that they had a very different, I would say, cultural and political development. Because Italy was, at the time it controlled the area of Somalia as a colony. Italy was not a democracy. It didn't develop really any political or legal institutions in that area. While the British Empire, always developed a system of law and order and local authorities that was far more developed, and even education So Somaliland was always an area within Somalia that was more culturally and politically and judicially developed.
Oh.
And so when Somalia, the countries of Somalia became more and more dictatorial, and the area of Somaliland was not really wanting to go on with this, then the regime in Mogadishu oppressed the people of Somaliland, and there was a very violent oppression, and Somaliland was basically destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed. That was a real genocide. And after that, in the 90s, basically Somalia as a country was basically destroyed. It broke up into various areas controlled by warlords. And at that point, the area of Somaliland started to basically govern itself. And from I would say the early 90s, Somaliland is a de facto
like different government already.
Exactly. It has its own government, and it is still very, very poor, but it's investing in education, in infrastructure. It has a solid judiciary, and most important, something that is very unusual, not only in Somalia, but in Africa and in Muslim countries. It has regular elections, and heads of state are win election and lose election. So there have been 3 or 4 times where the government has been replaced peacefully by the opposition. So you have something that you don't have in any Arab country, and you don't have that in most Muslim countries, because even in Muslim countries where you have some kind of elections, usually change of government is met by disruption and other problems. In Somaliland, there was no problem like that. So de facto, for, I would say, more than 20 years, it's a functioning, separate, independent country, while the rest of Somalia is a basket case with warlords. There are 5 or 6 areas. None of them is actually controlling the others. That is why the government in Somalia hasn't been able to recontrol Somaliland, because the government of Somalia is so weak, and basically some of the areas in Somalia are controlled by Al-Qaeda groups. Other are controlled by a Saudi, I would say Saudi financed groups, some by Turkish groups, and so on and so forth. It's basically warlords. And so I would say that it's a bit similar to the difference between North and South Korea, or between China and Taiwan. So you have, you could say, one people in the cultural and language and religious sense, but in the political sense, there are 2 very different cultures. And so basically, Somaliland, apart from its own characteristics, is also situated in a very strategic point, because the area of Somaliland is at the entrance of the Red Sea, and through the Red Sea and the Suez canals, about 40% of cargo ships by volume in the world go through that narrow passage. And so that is a very strategic place for controlling piracy, that is, of course, hurting, and also for counterbalancing groups like the Houthis in Yemen and other terrorists that basically are threatening these shipment lines. So let's say that cars manufactured in Japan or other products, in order to get to Europe, they go through the Red Sea. And if someone wants to disrupt there, it could be very easy. And so Somaliland, as an oasis.
I was looking at the map, and it was, and also I knew that it was strategic, but it was very interesting that, Israel recognized.
Perhaps if you can later in the editing, you can even maybe uh, put a
Yeah.
map in for 2 or 3 seconds just for
Yeah.
people to get more. It's very clear when you see the map
Mhm.
that basically you could say that Somaliland is the key to the Red Sea,
Mhm.
because the Red Sea, the entrance to the Red Sea is a very narrow passage that
Mhm.
is between Somaliland, Djibouti, and Yemen. That area.
Mhm.
And the problem is that one, in Yemen, there is a civil war
Mhm.
with the Houthis, who are Iranian agents, who
Mhm.
are very aggressively attacking ships with claim that those are ships directed to Israel, but however, they attack all kinds of ships and not only those directed to Israel.
Mhm.
And on the other side, maybe people don't know that, but the only large naval base that China has outside of Asia is in Djibouti, actually.
Oh, okay.
So you have, in a sense, on one side the Houthis, who
Mhm.
are Iranian proxies. On
Mhm.
the other side, you have a naval base, a military naval base of China. So you have the capability of China to close the Red Sea and all the commerce between Japan, India, and so on to Europe and further on. So basically, the presence of Somaliland as a pro-Western asset, I would say,
Mhm.
that is close to the US,
Mhm.
close to Israel,
Mhm.
close to the other allies, is a kind of, I would say, an insurance policy for the future of the Red Sea sea lanes remaining open. But I would add to this another element that, again, when someone sees the map, it will become evident that behind Somaliland, there
Mhm.
is Ethiopia, which is the second largest sub-African country by population. It's almost 100 million. And I think the third largest economy in Africa, and which is developing also very rapidly. It has like 8 or 9% growth. And Ethiopia itself, of course, is also connected to South Sudan and other countries like
Mhm.
Uganda and so on in Central Africa. And the problem is that Ethiopia, with all its assets, is a landlocked country. And it's surrounded by other countries that have access to the sea. Now, Ethiopia is developing, together with Somaliland,
Mhm.
the port of Berbera as
Mhm.
the main port through which goods can enter into Ethiopia and further on into Central Africa and also be exported. So I'm talking about all kind of rare earths elements or other products that can make way from Africa to Somaliland, and from there either to Europe or to Asia, to India, to Japan, to Southwest Asia, and so on. So that is strategic, not only as being the lane towards Europe to the Red Sea, but also being in a way a highway to Africa itself, which unfortunately I think that many Asian countries have neglected, and this has made it possible for China to establish hegemony and dependence in many African countries. And now I hope that the opening up of Somaliland in connection with Ethiopia and other countries will also develop that.
You know, I think that, recognition of Somaliland obviously will benefit the Asian nations like Japan. And, it sounds like, probably a lot of people will misunderstand this too. Like, as if, it were some kind of what like excuse for Israel to like to make up for their way of saying occupation, but I don't think they know what they mean by occupation when they use it in case of Japan, as I was, using, social media only in English before October 7th, well, before 2022. And then, after 2022, I started to use partially Japanese. And sometimes I check Japanese anti-Semitic words. And then, there's like all kinds of strange expressions, coming around. But I just, you know, I I don't think they ever understand what they're saying. And at the same time, there are a group of terrorists in Japan, from back in 1960s and 70s, and their leaders are still at loose. And one leader came out of prison, and she's been writing a book about it. And she's making speeches about how to protect people. She killed a lot of people and she committed a lot of terrorist attacks against the West. She's a very, very anti-West woman. So, it's so obvious that even in Japan, those anti-Semitic words are mean, I think, anti-West stance. And unfortunately, some journalists from, I will not say, I will not, I'm not taking everything personally, but, it's very obvious that they are saying that it's like systematically they are somewhat very anti-Semitic. And it's very, very hard to say, but, but
Yeah.
yeah, like
No,
yeah,
I think it's ironic. It's
yeah,
ironic because the very language
yeah,
of occupation
yeah,
is being used at this time, of course, against Israel, but
mhm,
also against Japan, because I see all the time now that the Chinese media and social media are
mhm,
talking about the Japanese occupation of
yeah,
the Ryukyu Islands, for
yeah, yeah,
example.
yeah,
Say, yeah, it's occupied also. So this kind of language can be used in, you can say whatever you want. If there's no factual basis,
mm,
then I think that allowing this kind of very unexact language to be used
mm.
means it can also be used against you. So I'm not advising it.
Right? Yeah, I really think that, I just wanted you to explain the difference between Somaliland and Somalia, and the reason
Sure.
why is we recognize the Somaliland because
Exactly.
it's very important. And also it's a democratic, it's trying to build democratic nation.
Yes,
So, it could be a great partner in the region for Israel. And
exactly.
also, I think that it will be a very great, it will produce great opportunities for other
I
nations.
think so. Yes.
But so, I really hope that there's more, business relations, economic relations, and also I hope that there is more defense, partnership with Israel, with Japan. So, I mean, that's one, realistic, way to counter, attack this Chinese stupid, government. And I just don't know what to do with all this thing. But we learned now how unrealistic to convince them to change. I mean, they're not going to change. So I mean, now I think it's about time we have to build a realistic partnership in the open Indo-Pacific. And I think between Japan and Europe, the area you mentioned is a very important part for the cargos to go through. So yeah, I really think that you know yeah, I hope that the audience understand the difference between it. And I thought it was a great day because it seemed like, it seemed that the Somaliland had such, great parade opportunity, like party, the Independence Day for
Yes.
them. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that probably do you still have time, or do you, because
Uh, a few minutes I can go on, but
okay.
yeah.
Um what do you think of the budget of Japan? The-
Well, uh, my view is mainly has to do with the fact that Japan has uh, actually is expanding its defense budget
Mhm.
uh, even more rapidly
Yeah.
than was required. So, I would say that in the last few years,
Mhm.
especially under pressure from Trump, all of America's allies are required um, to make the
Increase.
percentage of budget and GDP
Mhm.
uh, for expense to make it bigger for
Mhm.
expenses, so defense expenses. But in Japan's case, I see that it's even faster than required, and that is a sign that I think the Japanese government, its priorities
Mhm.
is to expand the defense capabilities of Japan. And the reason is obvious because China is the Chinese economy has grown so much, and so much of the Chinese economy is going into weaponry and
Mhm.
possibly offensive armaments. And
Mhm.
Japan, of course, has to have the capability to defend itself. And I believe that the clear uh, technological advantage that Japan
Mhm.
has to be kept, because of course if you just look at the numbers, then China of course is a far larger country.
Mhm.
So Japan has to have the technological edge in order to be able to defend itself, because the numbers are in a way against Japan.
Mhm.
So and that, I mean, Japan today has the technological advantage or advance over China, but it has to keep it, and the way to keep it is to invest more in the defense industries.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to say that in many cases, um, various investment in defense industries
Mhm.
also help the economy, in the sense that having more developed defense systems is also something that you can export to other countries. And
Mhm.
also, many times, many capabilities that are learned through defense industries can
Mhm.
be then transmitted into the general economy for, like advances in air travel that
Mhm.
were originated in military research,
Mhm.
then benefited the building of civilian airplanes.
Mhm.
So in the same manner, I believe that that could certainly be also not only necessary for, on the defense side, but
Mhm.
also I think benefit the Japanese economy more widely. And more than that, I wish very much for Japan to find ways to cooperate with other countries in Asia. Of course, it continues to cooperate with the US, but
Mhm.
also with other countries in Asia like India and Israel, who have, I would say, similar interests.
Mhm.
One, in the, let's say, counterbalancing the
Mhm.
growing attempt of China to become the regional hegemon,
Mhm.
uh, but also similar interest in exploring cutting edge technologies, and
Mhm.
especially defensive technology, because clearly neither India nor Israel nor Japan
Mhm.
have any offensive intentions toward China. They
Yeah.
have no intent of attacking China or invading China or anything like that. The problem is the opposite.
Mhm.
So in that aspect, it is very important
Mhm.
for all these countries to develop their defense capabilities. Especially significant is in Japanese case, because it's impossible for China to invade Japan by land. So basically, Japan has to invest a lot in research into air and naval technologies.
Yeah.
Yes, because we know that many of the classic naval capabilities, like having very large ships that are capable of being like, battleships, they're like fortresses in the sea, is becoming less and less important. And in many other, in the air, the same thing is that I would say quantity of very small vessels, many times that have no people in them, but are like drones. So they are clearly, you can see the impact of air drones in for instance, the Russia-Ukraine war. But it's only now becoming evident that there will be similar developments in sea drones, meaning certainly China is developing the capability to launch hundreds, maybe thousands of sea drones at the same time that would attack combined. They can attack ships, they can attack submarines, they can attack naval bases, and so on. And so there has to be developed a technology that can counter that, because clearly, in order to hurt Japan, the attack will have to be either from the air or from the sea. And so, while, for example, in the case of India, that is less relevant. I mean, it's possible to attack India from the land, from China. That is impossible in Japan case. But also for India, and also not only for Israel, there are various Chinese technologies that are being used. We know that in the latest conflict between India and Pakistan, the Pakistani Air Force relied very significantly on Chinese armaments.
Firepower. Yeah.
Exactly. And the same is with Israel, that now we have information about Iran being supplied by various Chinese technologies, missiles, and so on. So it's very important for all of our countries to together develop both defensive capabilities against these new Chinese technologies, but also to look, I would say, more widely at cooperation. I believe primarily in space exploration and development, which offers a lot of potential in the future.
I see.
Sorry.
Well, thank you so much. I really want you to come to my podcast and talk about, some of the really, really great things, which is about, Somaliland. And, I thought it was great because, the president sounded really happy.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that, and also, like Bondi Beach, that was so devastating for many people. And yeah, I think that it's important for people to understand, how much, they need to understand the facts, really. So,
Yes. And also the connections between them, because after all, there is a connection between, it doesn't seem to be, but there is, between Bondi Beach attack, the Somaliland independence, and the development of anti-Chinese or defense from the Chinese weapons. Because all of these three, Somaliland was a country that was and is suffering, and the whole area is suffering from Islamic terrorism. And the same, the Bondi Beach was a terrorist Islamic attack, and Islamic terrorism, especially Iran-sponsored, but not only, is relying a lot on Chinese support and armament. So we see that all these apparently different issues are converging on the same problems.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that is very true. So, yeah, I hope that, I think that this is really, really a good topic for the audience. they will understand
I
that
hope so.
Of course they will. So thank you so much for coming to my podcast.
Thank you as usual. It's a
So
pleasure.
now it's the afternoon, and I have to say, have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening yourself.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Somewhere, someone is waiting
Artlist.io.
for me to swim in his sea and drift in his dreams. Somewhere, someone is waiting for me. Tell him I'm on my way.
Music licensing reimagined.
Where someone looks up at the night and wonders if I am under the sky. Somewhere someone is out there tonight. Tell her I'm on my way. Will it be
Artlist.io.
perfect like a Hollywood plot? Probably not, I don't mind. But with every mishap and mistake, you'll see they will be perfect.
Music licensing
for me.
reimagined. Artlist.io.
Will it be perfect like a Hollywood plot? Probably not, I don't mind. But with every mishap and mistake, you'll see
Music licensing reimagined.
perfect for me. Somewhere, someone longs for the precise shade of green eyes that make up mine.
Somewhere someone is taking her time.
Artlist.io.
Tell her I'm on. Darling, I'm on my way.
Music licensing reimagined.